Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ video right here on NoDQ.com, as well as the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. We are coming off the WWE Money in the Bank pay-per-view and Monday Night Raw. Got your questions from twitter.com/AaronRift using the hashtag RoadToNoDQ1000. We're now at episode number 971. Let's get started today with the first question, which comes from Shams. First time asker, maybe? How did you react to Enzo getting betrayed by Big Cass on Raw? I thought that this was an excellent segment. I thought that this was the best ending to Monday Night Raw in a very long time. I would say it was better than the Big Show, Braun Strowman ring breaking from a few months back. For the first time in a long time, I'm actually looking forward to next week's Raw to see the follow-up to the big angle on Raw. Now, I've talked about this before with you guys. I think that perhaps it was too soon to break up Enzo and Cass. I would have liked to have seen them get a run with the tag team titles. I think that that would have been an ideal thing to do, to have them become champions for a while and give them a little bit more longevity as a group, as a team. But I thought the execution of this breakup was about as well done as possible. I think that Big Cass did a tremendous job with his promo. It was a breakthrough moment for him, in my opinion. I think that Big Cass really needed to show something on the mic, and I think he did it. He really pulled it off. It was very passionate. It was very well executed. And I think that Enzo did a great job with his reaction, even with the tear coming down his face. He did a really good job in selling the shock of this, that his best buddy would betray him. I loved it. I was very entertained by it, and I think both guys have a lot of potential to go far in WWE. Even Enzo, I know some people are saying he'll just end up lost in the shuffle or he'll be a manager, but the guy is entertaining enough on the mic, and he'll still have the entrance with the music and everything, so he'll have that going for him. And as far as Big Cass goes, now that he has proven that he can cut a promo, a very effective, memorable promo, I think that that is going to help him a lot moving forward, because if you have the size, if you have the in-ring skills, and if you have the mic skills, you have all the tools needed to become a major, major superstar. And that was really critical for Cass on Raw, to deliver a strong promo, and I felt he did. This one comes from Chris. Hey Aaron, not saying it would be great, but do you see Jinder Mahal and Randy Orton having their feud end in a Punjabi Prison match? I've seen people speculating about that. I'm not really a fan of the Punjabi Prison matches. The only memorable moment that I could recall was when Batista jumped from one part of the structure to another. But maybe with Orton and Jinder, they could have a better match. Maybe it would be better. Maybe it's worth giving it one more shot, and we haven't seen it in a very long time. Probably for good reason, but I do not think it's the worst idea in the world to try that match again and use that gimmick. As long as you're pushing Jinder Mahal, I guess that would make sense. And then, you know, I'm sure the Singh brothers would be climbing up and doing all sorts of things. It might be entertaining. I think it's perhaps worth doing as a final match to blow off the Orton-Mahal feud. So I would not be totally against that idea. This one comes from Mr. Yuck. Might we see a split brand It Couple match between Miz and Maurice versus Mike Bennett and Maria at WrestleMania 34? Well, he's not Mike Bennett anymore, first of all. He took his wife's last name. I think that would be a really fun match for next year's WrestleMania, although we already saw Miz and Maurice versus John Cena and Nikki Bella, so it would feel like you're almost doing the same thing, but with two people that are not as big of stars as John Cena and Nikki Bella. I would be open to that match taking place at some point, though. It doesn't necessarily have to be at WrestleMania, in my opinion. I think that you could do that maybe at Survivor Series if you're going to do a Raw versus SmackDown themed show, which I think Survivor Series should be. I think you should really do the battle of Raw versus SmackDown, have a series of matches to see which brand is the most dominant. You know, do what they did for bragging rights at Survivor Series. And at Survivor Series, I like the idea of doing the Miz and Maurice versus Mike and Maria, the love couple, battle of the love couples. So yeah, I would like that idea. I think that's something that could be very interesting, but if it was me, I would do it at Survivor Series. This one comes from Deplorable Hamp. Besides the Katie Vick incident, what, in your opinion, is the most controversial segment that WWE never should have done? Well, if we're talking about segments that were more shoot than work, you know, going back to '97 when Vince McMahon interviewed Melanie Pillman on Monday Night Raw, that was a really uncomfortable segment, and I think that maybe WWE should not have done that. When I think of segments that were strictly storyline, some people might say the Brian Pillman gun angle, but I would not say that because I was entertained by it. I thought that it was a memorable segment, but it certainly stirred up a lot of controversy and got a lot of people upset. I mean, the necrophilia thing was, I think, the worst segment WWE ever did, and just a segment that really served no purpose in getting people interested in that storyline. All it did was turn people off of the storyline. Some might say the Vince McMahon and God thing, that was crossing a line. I had no problem with it personally, but I know some people that were offended by it. And the stuff making fun of Jim Ross, like with the Bell's palsy, Vince mocking JR, was a really unnecessary segment and really lacked class, in my opinion. So there's a few segments that I could recall that I felt were really inappropriate and really served no purpose. I mean, nothing really offends me, but I find some segments to be counterproductive and just not smart when you're trying to get people to spend money on your product, doing angles and storylines that are going to offend those people and get them to not spend money on your product. This one comes from Tyler Joseph Smith. Do you think American Alpha should turn heel as D-bag high school varsity athletes? They need something. Absolutely, 100%. I think American Alpha need to go heel. I think that they need to be brought back and just be total pricks, and like you said, let them be the cocky varsity athletes, maybe something similar to the Varsity Club back in the NWA/WCW. I think it needs to be done, and I think that a lot of people would agree that they need to go heel. I think Daniel Bryan said it. There was an article that he recently was part of that he did an interview for. I think it was NBC Sports. Not sure the exact publication, but the article, an excerpt of it, is on NoDQ.com, and Bryan talked about, you know, one of the biggest mistakes or one of the biggest negatives to his run as general manager has been American Alpha. That's been considered one of the failures. So I'd like to see something happen with American Alpha, them turning heel. I definitely feel it needs to be done to give their career a resurgence. This one comes from Eric. What would you say are the best pre-pay-per-view brawls in WWE history? I have a couple of favorites. Right before WrestleMania 13, Steve Austin, Bret Hart, of course. They had some great brawls, and then that last Raw when Bret started using profanity, you had Steve Austin coming out, The Undertaker coming out, Sid coming out, just a crazy brawl. That was a lot of fun. But I think the best one, in my opinion, was right before Invasion, when Steve Austin came out and beat up the Alliance and laid out everybody with stunners. That was great. Actually, another great one around that period, a little bit after that, was right before Survivor Series. I remember it might have been SmackDown, I'm not sure, but there was a segment where you had all the guys coming out hitting their finishers. The segment was just intense as hell. The crowd was going crazy for everything. It was a really well done segment to build up hype for the pay-per-view and just this idea of a crazy brawl. But yeah, I still think the Invasion one was my all-time favorite. And WCW had a really good one right before their Great American Bash pay-per-view, when just everybody was fighting. The entire locker room was fighting. You had all the NWO guys, all the WCW guys. They were fighting in the ring by the set. You had DDP coming out and getting attacked by Hogan, and then Sting came down from the rafters and saved DDP, hooked up DDP to his harness, and then they both went back up into the rafters. I mean, that was a really spectacular moment on Nitro, one of the best endings in Nitro history. And that one was just a chaotic brawl. So that was one of my favorites as well. This one comes from Kyle. Will we ever see Cody Hall in NXT? I think that really depends on Cody and if he is passionate enough about wanting to be in WWE. I think if he wants it bad enough, he'll get the opportunity for sure because of the fact that he is Scott Hall's son. He's got that foot in the door, but it's a lot of pressure, you know. I've said this before. It is like a double-edged sword. Yes, you do have the advantage of being a second-generation performer and having that foot in the door, so to speak. But at the same time, there's that extra pressure to succeed, and people are going to have really high expectations of you, and they're going to be very critical of every little thing you do. You're going to be under a microscope. They're going to expect pure greatness out of you right off the bat. So it is a challenging situation. When do you go into NXT? You know, again, like I've said before, it's all about timing. I think when the timing's right for Cody Hall, if it's something he really wants to do, I think we will see him in NXT at some point, and maybe even on the main roster. I mean, from what I've heard about him, he seems to be doing really well and definitely has the potential to succeed on a big stage like WWE. This one comes from The Dark One. The best match for you, WrestleMania 21, Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle, or Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, your thoughts? Oh man, that's a tough one. I was at WrestleMania 21, got to see Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle live in person, and to this day it's still the best match I've ever seen in person. But I think I would have to go with Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. I think that WrestleMania 25 match, as I've said many times in the past, I mean, it was pretty much flawless. I mean, really, Angle and Shawn Michaels was as well. So it's a tough call. I mean, both of those matches are excellent. Both of them top tier, all-time great WrestleMania matches. So I think it just comes down to your own personal taste, which match you thought was better. I mean, it's really impossible for me to criticize either match. I thought both of them were absolutely fantastic. I think if I had to criticize Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, I would say maybe Michaels was in the ankle lock and in the submission hold for too long, and it got to the point where it was a little bit unbelievable that somebody would be in a submission hold for that long without passing out. You know, I know they were trying to do the dramatic effect of Michaels being in the submission, but I think maybe they did it a little too long. But again, that's nitpicking. I still think it was an absolutely phenomenal match. This one comes from Jeremy James 24. Which Survivor Series do you think was the weakest? Personally, I would pick Survivor Series 92. Brett versus Shawn saved it though. I would have to say the 2009 Survivor Series. I just think about that triple threat, John Cena versus Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, and the build was Hornswoggle being involved and being in that storyline with DX. There was more focus on that than the actual triple threat match. I just thought that Survivor Series was really lackluster, and it was so bland that I believe around that period Vince actually wanted to get rid of Survivor Series. They were going to cancel Survivor Series and stop doing that as a pay-per-view. But there was a lot of fan backlash, a lot of fans upset about that, and Vince and WWE changed their minds and Survivor Series continued. So I would have to say 2009. The 92 one was pretty weak. The 93 one was pretty weak. I mean, to me, the only memorable thing about that Survivor Series was the Bret Hart-Owen Hart fallout. So 93, I think, would be my second choice after 2009. But there have been some weak ones, especially in recent years. 2010, I thought, was really disappointing. That whole Nexus storyline with Wade Barrett, John Cena, and Randy Orton, I thought that show was pretty weak as well. 2011 was really disappointing also. You would think with The Rock coming back for his first match after being gone for so many years that they would have done a better job with that Survivor Series, but the hype and build, I mean, The Miz and R-Truth were booked so poorly for that Survivor Series that show ended up being a major letdown as well. This one comes from Frederick Taylor. Hey Aaron, how do you feel about Hideo's heel turn? Personally, I think it will be good and gives him something to do. Your thoughts? I think it had to be done. I think that he really lost a lot of momentum because of his injuries, and something needed to be done. And I think just making him a silent killer would be a very effective way to book him moving forward. You know, he's not really great when it comes to talking, so you really need to play to his strengths, and his strengths are in the ring. And I think just making him a badass who just is ruthless and doesn't care about anybody, I think that's what you need to do with his character, and just make him a danger to anybody who steps in the ring with him. Make him a guy that people fear. I think that that's what WWE needs to do with Itami, and we'll see if it ends up working out for him. But I think if they do that, they go in that direction, that could possibly help him get his career back on track in WWE and NXT. That'll wrap it up for NoDQ video. Thank you guys for watching. As the road to 1,000 continues, I will be doing an extended video coming up for episode number 975. You can submit your questions for that and other videos in the future. Please spread the word about NoDQ video. Tell a friend. Anybody you know who watches wrestling, have them check out this video. And stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest post news from the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. And we got another pay-per-view, of course. It's WWE after all. We have Great Balls of Fire. Hashtag WWE Balls. NoDQ.com will have you covered with the latest news, rumors, and of course, live results coverage. And on that note, I will see you guys next time.